So you want to hear about that snap version, right? I mean, how can we create that snappy message, you know, one that somebody listens to and they hear and at the end of their message they go, whoa, that's interesting. Tell me more. Now again, we're taking the entire SNAP principles and all the SNAP factors and we're just focused on the front end, on that message at the very, very beginning in terms of what does it take to get the meeting. That's the first decision. And we have to bring all this stuff that I've talked about now into the messaging. So what does it look like? Well, the very first thing that you have to do in a snappy message is you have to have a very brief intro. You need to think, oh my goodness, this person's going to delete me if I go on and on and on about my company. And so rather than saying, hi Bob, this is Jill Konrath calling, I'm the account executive with XYZ company. Chop, 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 let's get right to the point. Bob, Jill Konrath calling. Wow, chop that off, huh? You see how that's so much more condensed than it was before? Okay, now, and here's where here's the part where you have to build that credibility, because the next thing out of your mouth needs to make you sound like an expert who's paid the price of admission, who understands what's going on in their organization. So this is what you need to do. You need to either refer to a referral. Somebody suggested that I talk with you, and it should be a credible referral that you were talking to somebody else in their organization or somebody else in a position, you know, similar to theirs in another organization who suggested I get in touch. That's one way, and that's the simplest way. It's also the most difficult because most of us don't have a strong referral network. But if you don't have the referral, you still as a seller are chartered to get into that company. So you have to build that credibility right up front. So the next thing out of your mouth after, hi Bob, Jill Konrath calling, is something that says something like this. In researching your website, I noticed that one of your primary business drivers for 2010 is this. So boom, you say, you get right to business. In researching your website, I noticed that this is what was going on. Or you might say, Bob, in working with other accounting firms such as yours, I know that one of the key challenges that they're facing today is. And so you bring out your expertise up front. Or you could say, again, I'm showing you multiple ways to demonstrate expertise at the very front end. You could say something about a trigger event. You could just say, Bob, Jill Konrath calling. The reason I'm getting in touch with you is that, whoops, I'm going a little bit backwards. I'm getting a little excited about myself. Bob, Jill Konrath calling. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the federal government just passed some legislation on this particular topic. I suspect it'll have an impact on what you're doing in this area. And so you bring in that information that shows that you are fundamentally different from every seller out there. In fact, by the way, the person on the other end of the phone doesn't know that you're selling stuff. You sound like a business person, not a salesperson. And then after the credibility statement, the messaging that you use to build that credibility, then you get it into the meat. And in the meat, what you talk about are the problems that people are struggling with. We work with companies who are struggling with issues such as this, such as trying to reduce time to market on new product introductions, or we work with companies who want to achieve something. So we work with companies who are working to shorten time to revenue on new product introductions, and then you throw in a value proposition if you have it, and then you say, one of our recent clients, another accounting firm like yours, was able to land 3 Fortune 100 clients in just 6 months after working with us. And so what your goal is that the person on the other end of the line will go, whoa, that's interesting, tell me more. So everything has got to be pulled together into that small amount of space to bring the person together. And finally you close as if you're a peer, not that you're somebody who's hoping to get on their schedule, but somebody who literally believes that they belong on the schedule, and it says something to the effect like, let's set up a time to talk, this is important, it's money that can drop right to your bottom line, how does Tuesday next week sound, or something along that effect, but you pull it all together in terms of a nice snappy message that overall says, hi Bob, Jill Konrath calling. In researching your website, I see that one of your primary concerns in the upcoming year is the successful launch of your new products. We've been working with other companies similar to yours to do this and have realized a 47% increase in sales in the first 3 months of working with us. Let's set up a time to talk, here's my number. And it's a very business-oriented message as opposed to a sales message. See the difference?
I do.
Yeah, and you do the same thing with emails. Again, you just jump right into it and you give the meat of it. You don't have to do the introduction because your name and your company is down in your signature file at the very bottom. But you jump right in and you say, in researching your company or in working with other companies similar to yours, one of the things I found is, and I've got some ideas, and let's set up a time to talk. And it's just very brief and it's condensed and it's not filled with a whole bunch of fluff. It is to the point, something that a decision maker could read. Again, preview screen visible on an iPhone, you know, that little tiny screen too. I mean, easy to read through that without a lot of options, just with one request to initiate and get together.